Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Mignell, CEO of the experience agency The Flash. Each week, I bring on a different business leader who's doing some game changing work. And as we're in this really unusual time of coronavirus, and we're all stuck at home, it gives business leaders a set of really unique challenges. And that's why I'm super excited to have Tracey Faux-Pattani, who's CEO of BSSP, and we're going to talk about how, she took over right as this was happening. So if ever is a story of resilience and working with teams, it's Tracey's. It's going to be a great conversation. Take a listen. Hey, Tracey.
Hi. Thank you for
How's it
having
going?
me. Good. I'm in my bedroom office in my what has become a very small world these days.
The bedroom office, like I've actually got better acoustics in my apartment's bathroom. That's what I've now decided to. That's now where I record everything because it's actually soundproof. It's kind of nuts. That's what's happened in this world. So can't complain at all.
I love
But
there you go. There's a story of resilience right there.
hey, it is what it is. But even though the podcast is now being done largely via Zoom, it doesn't change, and the first question doesn't change. So, Tracey, what was your first job?
Well, my first job out of college was, so I graduated with a degree in journalism, but then leveraged that into advertising. So my first job was starting at Ogilvy, Los Angeles, which is, an icon in the industry. And I still remember the day that I started because it was, just physically, it was this super intimidating place because it had these big, wide hallways and this huge lobby and this tiny little perfect reception desk in the middle of it with this very beautiful and fashionable female receptionist and red carpet everywhere because that was the brand.
Okay.
And so it was really intimidating to walk in there. And funny enough, it was also just down the street from the La Brea Tar Pits. And I don't know if you have ever seen the La Brea Tar Pits, but it's sort of this, very odd museum experience in the middle of Los Angeles where it's, dinosaurs like that are falling into the tar and kind of frozen in position. And I would have to drive past that every single day on the way to work.
Okay.
That blazed into my head on, okay, that's a metaphor right there. Don't become a dinosaur in this career.
That's a clear metaphor. I have ever seen one. Oh my goodness. Okay, so you start out, and so how do we end up getting you to be one of the uh, not rare, but definitely there needs to be more of women's-led CEOs of huge advertising agencies. What's that journey like?
It was so it's funny because I think I've had a pretty on in terms of a pace standpoint a more of a slower pace progression in my career to get to CEO, and I actually really appreciated I appreciated each opportunity I got and each level I was in. I really focused a lot on broad shoulder experiences at each step in my career versus thinking too much about the next level up or the next agency move. I just sort of wanted to make sure I gathered up everything I could possibly learn and understand at each point. And so I think I really learned a huge, just a diverse range of skills, but I also learned how important culture and relationships were to this business. So if you fast forward to how did I come to join BSSP, as CEO, well, I did spend some time in my career earlier in the early 2000s at BSSP. And it was actually really my only independent agency experience. And so and I loved my time in the early 2000s because I loved the culture, and I loved the people, and I loved the focus on creativity. And what made me a great candidate for them in coming back was that I could bring all of that diverse experience back to BSSP, but I also came back loving the culture and wanting to just help it flourish more, not change the culture.
Awesome. And, so, you decided to come back in. You decide, hey, I'm going to take this job. It's going to be awesome. And it's new culture. Isn't this great? And then there's a pandemic that hits. What, take us back to like those first 48 hours when you realized the entire universe is shutting down. What were you thinking? Like, how were you thinking? Okay, I just started this job and everything's going to hell.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I was fighting against it. I was like, no, we don't need to close. We're going to be fine. I mean, that's probably a little bit of what's, has so long been ingrained in me in this career. And, is that, I grew up in an industry that was pretty tough on us, right? Like it was always about just get back up and you can do it. And we got to keep this business moving. And so I think maybe initially for me, it triggered like, no, we don't need to close. We're going to be fine. And then I really had to step outside of myself and listen to a group of people that I didn't even know all that well, and really understand what they were feeling and what they were seeing around them, and frankly, come to my senses a bit. And then we got to work on, okay, what do we need to do to adapt to this and to make everybody feel okay with this and to keep business moving at the same time.
And for you, it's like, okay, we're in this moment, and now, okay, we're in July. How's that sort of entire stretch of journey been? Like, what, how have you been effectively able to sort of like maintain and hold on to the culture, even though everyone's stuck at home?
Great question. I think, and I do think we've had ebbs and flows, and we constantly have to consciously bring ourselves back to it. I think that there was a period of time when I would say the first 3 months, that we were all just really feeding off the energy of being in it together and fighting against this crisis together. And now we're in this like, okay, this is like mode of operations. And so different things are kind of starting to come up and take place now. One, how do we keep fueling the energy and the connectivity with each other? But also, how do you support individual employees and where they are in their mental health? And not everyone even wants to admit that, including myself. So how do you connect one-on-one? How do you just give people, the promise and of support? Like, we'll do whatever you need to feel good. If you have to take a day off, if you need to, we're providing, a lot of mental health support and resources. So it's really just constantly communicating what's out there to self-select into, showing and demonstrating that you can also be a bit vulnerable and say when you're not feeling well, and also calling people one-on-one and just seeing how they're doing and seeing if they'll open up.
I think it's so key right now because I think folks are just understandably shook. And to go from, your normal experience, I think we all had at the beginning of, okay, like, maybe we'll be home for a little bit. And, not only are we not going back to work, I don't know whether we used to, but now it seems it's going to be even longer than I think some folks had even thought. I had folks telling me like, "We'll be doing events in October," and I'm like, "In 2021,"
Right.
and they're now addressing the fact that like this is actually going to become the norm for about a year at least. How have you been sort of been able to kind of talk to your clients? Because again, you're relatively new in the role, and assuring them and giving them guidance and structure that like you know BSSP is here.
Yeah, and that actually is also another thing that was really impacted in this time and starting out. The one of the first things you do as a CEO is you double down and connect with every client that you can, and you get to know them. And that was slowed down and delayed for sure, because one, I had to help the organization move virtually, and two, because all of my clients were doing the same with their organizations. And now, we are back to a routine of constant connection. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I find pretty refreshing about these circumstances, if refreshing isn't at all the right word choice, um, is that there is a level of honesty and a level of partnership that has been injected into the client agency relationships at every level. So I find that the conversations that I'm having with our clients are just so human. Like, we ask each other about how are each other's organizations doing, and we're open and honest about where they're not doing okay, right? And we're often used to, in this business, trying to like maybe always paint the space that as an agency we know everything that we're we know what we're doing, and everybody in our building is happy and healthy, and you kind of put on your sales face. And now the conversations are so much more real, and it gets us into helping each other think about, okay, what can we do together to help our teams together. So I think it's actually going to strengthen our partnerships.
Absolutely. I think that's going to be key. It's like having those partnerships, and being that you're going to be able to walk with them. So you're looking at everything that's happening right now. Obviously, this is probably the biggest challenge of your career. What would you think you'd tell 25-year-old Stacey?
I think it's probably going to sound a little bit like one of those inspirational posters you put up on the wall, but it is a lot of the sort of human aspects and the self-coaching aspects. I think, well, I probably first start by making a joke about how this career is a marathon and not a sprint, for sure. But I think I would probably talk a lot about developing, really focusing, on yourself and understanding yourself as you develop through your career. Trust yourself, understand the areas where you feel comfortable and excited, and the areas where you don't feel comfortable, or in the areas that you don't feel excited, and lean into those. Don't ignore them, because those are the places where you develop. And where you really broaden your shoulders. But don't be shy to embrace the things that you love the most about your career, and that you are most natural at. This industry is a team sport completely, and I think where I have seen teams, high performing teams, is when everybody has actually embraced their own strengths and recognized that where they don't have strengths, they're leaning on somebody else who has those strengths. And then I think the last thing I would probably have said to my younger self is also pay attention all along the way to leadership characteristics that you like and don't like, as you work with different managers in your career, because I think you become kind of it's yourself, but it's also an amalgamation of the people that you've worked with throughout your career. So maybe pay a lot of attention to those things so that you can really build those building blocks.
Oh, I think it's so key. And I think, a lot of young people right now are like, what do I do? Because they're walking into the weirdest job market ever. And I was like, but you'll find your way. You absolutely will find your way. And it'll guide you in ways that you never thought possible. And thinking about that, like, separate of a challenge of starting in a new job in the middle of a pandemic, what's been a challenge in your career where you're like, this is never going to work, and then you figured it out and found your way?
Oh, another great question. I think, and and you're right. Separate from, I mean, obviously where I'm at today and what I'm managing through is, certainly the biggest challenge in my entire career. But setting that aside, I think I've had a couple of times in my career where I really came to understand this idea of fit, and I suppose call it a values alignment, which isn't to say that I was in a organization that didn't have good values, but just that maybe those values were different. They valued different things than I valued, and um, and those moments, those couple of moments were really hard on me. It made me question myself and whether I was good at what I was doing in that moment. And I managed to, because I will say, I think resilience and adaptability are probably the two most important characteristics for anyone. And somehow I have known that along the way. So even in those moments, I took the opportunity to learn from that organization everything that I needed to learn, even if I felt like they didn't necessarily value what I could bring to the table. And then I got out because I knew that I couldn't make a difference there, because it wasn't a good fit.
Wow. I think that's often so hard, especially for women in business, where we're like, if I just do this, 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 and this, then everything will be okay. And oftentimes it's like, yeah, this just isn't the move. And like, no matter what we try and do, what we try and place around ourselves, like, it's not going to be the thing that moves. So I have to bow out gracefully. And I think that's a wonderful example you just shared.
Yeah, thank you. And you're right, it's not easy. And I did all of those things that you said. I think I probably spent too much time in hindsight going, okay, well, I did this and it didn't work. What's wrong with me? Why is this not working? And I suppose there's learnings in that, but we can often be too hard on ourselves.
Like you say, I think the most important thing about all of this is to give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
And that it's you can't solve every single problem under creation. However, you can find a way. And if that way means a way out, then it just means a way out. And that's okay. You don't have to set a fire to all the bridges. Some bridges do need to burn.
Yes.
Because they just need to. Like, I was having this conversation with someone the other day. It's like, just nuke them and keep it moving. But if you can handle it with a way where like you can have you don't feel any animosity to yourself. Or like, yeah, I had to do what I had to do for me. Because I think oftentimes, especially, we don't put ourselves first. We try and help everybody, forgetting that it might be killing us. And it's what they say there on the plane. Put the oxygen mask on first before you help others.
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
And so, in thinking about all of this and how we all have to adapt in this insane current climate, what in the world are you doing for your self-care, Tracey?
Oh, okay, that's where you caught me, because I'm probably not doing a very good job of that. Because I don't think I don't think just drinking wine is really a self-care regimen. But I do find when I remind myself to get out and go for walks, and it doesn't take much, like just connecting with nature. And I'm lucky enough to be in, a neighborhood with a lot of trees and landscape, and it's just really nice. It just brings you down like several notches instantly. And it makes me wonder too how people are feeling in the middle of urban centers, which always brought a different kind of sort of soul feeding to it, right? It was energy and it was diversity and great different kinds of people and so much buzz, but not a whole lot of nature. So I do wonder how folks living in the center of San Francisco or New York are feeling.
It sucks. I'm going to tell you right now.
Where are you?
As someone who's in New York City, it sucks. My kingdom for some green and an ocean that I can actually go into. It's weird on many, many levels, and I'm like, what? But I think you find your ways to adapt, and I think that's really it's that sort of me time is so important. I mean, I was saying to someone the other day that, like, as much as it sucks that I'm home for the first time in 7 years, I want to say, for more than like a couple of weeks, I've gotten so much more stuff done. I've actually had time to be a bit more creative, come up with some new ideas. And so I think that time to yourself, wherever it is, or whether you're finding it in nature or finding it just vegging out on Netflix, is also necessary because we are living through a pandemic.
Yeah, and actually, I love that idea of doing some creative projects too. That, like, working with your hands and just making something. Or even, I do love to organize too. So I probably should get
really?
closets.
Are you also a big fan of the Container Store? Because it's kind of like my church.
Oh, yes. I love it. It makes me so happy.
It's almost as if they like, what do women really need? Organizational tools. What if we went into a store? We'd all lose our minds. It's such a wonderful place. I mean, I could hang out there and just get more shelves and like the little plastic organizers for my desk on a daily basis.
I wish we could like do our quarantine offices in a Container Store.
Oh my God. Can you imagine? Because we would make our own dividers, so we'd have social distance. We'd have all the little roly things on the floor to kind of mark everything off. It would actually be kind of awesome. And I remember this, and the ceilings are super high, so lots of good air filtration. They sell all the desk stuff that you would need. So storage cabinets, filing cabinets, like everything is there. FYI, you can sell little curtains and like these little dividers. I mean,
it's perfect. I think we're on to something. We need to send a note to Containers.
And be like, listen, if you all opened up your spaces and turned them into temporary offices, a la WeWork, you would get lots of women who are, at home coming in to work from Container Store. And then you could potentially buy the stuff that's in the store. Just saying, an idea.
Yep.
So, of all of this stuff, it's like, we're all trying to figure this out. We're obviously in the creative industry, and we've got brands who, need our help and counsel. Where do we go from here? What do you think we're going to be doing in a year from now?
Well, I find myself, I like to talk about this as what do I hope we'll be doing?
Yes, I prefer hope. I like to live in hope.
I mean, who knows what will actually happen, but I do think that, and I mentioned this earlier, but I really think that this has brought a recommitment to the humanity aspects of business, and particularly in our business, I think that means a number of things. I do think that it means a rebirth of creativity that makes us feel things again. I think it's going to bring back the importance of talent, and making sure that you're creating an environment for your talent to flourish, which means respecting time for them to think, to de-stress, to be with their family. I think, hopefully doing fewer things, but doing them better. And, I also think maybe there'll be a renewed importance on gut and intuition, which is, I think, just as powerful as data, frankly, because and it can adapt quicker in times of unpredictability, right? Like now, kind of a lot of our data got thrown out the window because these huge series of crises hit us. But human intuition and human understanding and gut got to fill in and adapt. So I think that's, I hope, and I know for us at BSSP, that's certainly going to be a focus. I do think from a brand marketing perspective, we'll see brand purpose really come back to the forefront, because it is a compass in all kinds of storms. And I think if we look at the last 20 years, then we can count on there being a lot of storms continuing to come and hit us. So it really sort of helps us with those constant shifts. And I also think that, going back to talent too, this idea of being much more flexible in what we need to do as a company to get access to the best talent from wherever they may be, and create more flexible arrangements around that. One of the things I've actually really loved during this period is that we've hired a few people in quarantine, and we've done a really good job of thinking about how do we onboard them for success and build relationships, and they are in other locations. And what I like about that is it's almost becoming this trial run, right? They can really make sure that they like us, and that fit is there before they pen their life and move here, or even if they don't want to move here. But if they wanted to move here, at least they know then that the fit is right before they take on that big kind of change in their life. So those, I think, are some of the things. They're all very human based.
Well, I think that's also key, because I think one of the things that's happened that not only do we have a pandemic everyone's trying to adapt to, but we now also have had a big, obviously, a racial reckoning within the country and the world, and I think especially within our industry of the advertising world, and I think we're also looking in internally, like how we can make our companies and our industry more appealing to communities of color. On top of everything else you've had to do, Tracey, how have you had to navigate that as well?
Yeah, and actually, I'll tell you, I felt really lucky to be in my role facing into that, because now I do have more, I have more say and I have more power to help create the vision of BSSP as it should be. And the way that we've approached that is, it's been actually really, really great because we're certainly not doing it from a tops down. It has been an entire team effort. We dismantled and rebuilt our diversity, equity, and inclusion plan together. And every single voice in our building has been part of the plan that we laid down. And we've already made a ton of progress in our actions, and it's bringing us closer together. And And I love all of the candidates now that I am getting to meet, because we have made a better commitment to go out there and find everyone. And so I feel actually really lucky. I mean, yeah, it's tough because there are some very heartfelt, foundational, important conversations happening that can be uncomfortable. But I'm so glad that I'm in this role where I can have a real impact and a real influence in helping change things.
Awesome. And I think, that's the thing that has to happen. I think it has to go from the top down. I've been using this analogy when I've spoken on panels about this recently. Is like, if your house is on fire, you really can't talk about your neighbors. So if your company hasn't had a chance to sort of take a look at what's happening internally and how they're addressing these problems, then you can't really talk to your clients about it yet. You've got to be able to walk the walk. And so it's great to hear that, because you're in your role, you're able to actually take a hammer to those systems and really build new ones that can be far more inclusive.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And we had a lot of those conversations as well. We had the most power over ourselves. And I mean, it may be an overused expression, but it is an absolutely perfect expression. It would just be the model you want to see in the world. And we can't play judge and jury right now with our clients. We have to become the model that we want to see, and then we need to use that to partner and inspire our clients. So we've shared our DE&I plan with all of our clients. We're routinely swapping ideas and inspiration to just change together. So I do think it's also a place where we've increased partnership with clients.
And it's, I think that's the thing. It's like we're at this moment now where it's no longer a moment, it's a movement. And as companies move forward, those that actually set forth a vision that says they're not just about running a check, that's performative allyship, but it's actually about breaking down the systems and building better systems. That's how we end up developing meaningful and lasting impact and being at the forefront of something that's actually really truly incredible as opposed to status quo.
Yeah. Agree 100%.
And so, lastly, really important question. Do you have a give and or an ask of the audience? So this could be anything. So it could be, here's a great book I read if I think is awesome, or it could be, I hope everyone then takes some time for themselves to be more mindful. Anything you want. And you could do both. You could do a give or an ask, or give and an ask, whichever you'd like.
Oh, that, let's see. I definitely, for a give standpoint, which is not just to take what you've offered, but I think it's really important, even for those of us that have sort of, for whatever reason, be it industry, be it family, be it self-imposed, that tend to be more stoic about things and not want to, just accept that we're not feeling okay in a day. Really focus in on that and try it once. Try saying once to someone like, I'm not okay today. And this might not be a great conversation because I don't feel good or I'm cranky. Or maybe we should move this conversation to another day. I think just try it once and see how it feels. It's not easy for me either. So that would certainly be my give. And I will say, here's my ask. leaders are people too, which sounds like such a frankly moronic thing to say, but it's true.
But I get it.
We forget that leaders are people, and we don't know how to do everything right, and we have moments where we feel bad, or we get it wrong, or we're trying to move an organization and we can't please everyone. And find some empathy for your leaders. Try to understand them.
That's wonderful. And thank you for saying that. Because honestly, I think it's so true. And sometimes folks put people who are in leadership in these little glass bubbles. Like they're way over here, unattainable. Nothing is going to ever hurt them. And forgetting that, like, we are living through a pandemic. Yeah. All of us, senior leaders, receptionists, we're all living through a pandemic. We're not working through it, we're living through it. Yes. And when you're living, you have to adapt in a way that you've never had to before, because you just want to survive. And I think people sometimes look at leadership and think they're the strong ones, and so they don't need to be checked up on. And they don't need to ask if they're okay, because clearly they wouldn't have become a leader unless they were amazing and inhuman, right? What? No. So I think that's so very important. And so I'm so glad and grateful that you said that, because I think we have to remember that we all are in this together. I hate that phrase, but it's true. Yeah, and it's necessary to have grace for everyone. And not be so quick to make judgments or go heavy on folks, because we're just trying to survive this very, very crazy time.
Yeah.
But Tracey, you were a delight to have on the show. Thank you so very much. I am so excited to see what awesome new campaigns come out of BSSP now that you're running the show. And the great work you're going to do. And we'll throw information in the show notes so folks can follow you on the social medias and what you guys are up to. But thank you so very much.
Well, and thank you. This has been so much fun. I mean, I want to keep talking to you after outside of podcasts.
Oh, we can keep talking, don't worry. So like I said, you'll find all the information about Tracey and BSSP in the show notes. And that is our show.